Growing up, I never felt like it was okay for me to be a girl. I always felt that the roles women were supposed to play were not the roles that I wanted to play. I was athletic. I wanted to be in the spotlight. I wanted to be a leader. And it seemed like those were the things that men were supposed to do while the women sat around and watched. And so as a result, I equated femininity with being weak. When I was a kid, I wanted to play sports with boys because so many of the girls just seemed weak and wimpy, and it just wore me out. They wouldn't compete with the boys, and I couldn't handle it. And then some of the boys would try to give me some sort of advantage, or they'd let me win just because I was a girl, and it made me furious. I already felt like I was less than them. I didn't need them to rub it in my face. And in school, girls weren't supposed to be smart. They weren't supposed to be good at things like math and science, and I was, and it was embarrassing. I was ashamed of the person that I was. I remember there were girls who would get bad grades on purpose just because they wanted to impress the boys. I thought that was ridiculous, but I couldn't find a way to merge femininity with intellect. And so I hid my femininity. I refused to wear pink or makeup or, heaven forbid, a skirt. I refused to take home ec or help my mom in the kitchen or watch romantic comedies. That was girl stuff, and I had no interest in it. I wanted to be the one outside playing kickball with the boys or building forts in the woods. I didn't have time for that girl stuff. And I hid all of my emotion because, after all, if a boy cried, he was called a girl, and that would have been the worst insult anyone could have thrown at me. So I stuffed everything. I stuffed the hurt and the tears. But there came a point when I couldn't hide it anymore. I couldn't suppress the girl that was in my soul trying to escape. Somewhere down deep inside me, I heard God's voice saying that He actually hadn't made a mistake in making me a girl, that I could be the person He created me to be and do the things He created me to do while still being a girl. I hated that. I hated it, but I couldn't deny it. I started to see women who were doing the things that I wanted to do. People who were leading in the church, people who were smart and successful. And that gave me hope, and it gave me encouragement that I could be a girl and I could still be the person that God created me to be. And I can't say that any of this has been easy. It's been a path that's been filled with fear and with doubt and with shame. But it's been a good process too, because it's freed me up to be the person that God has created me to be. It's been fun to finally be able to see the woman that God created me to be and not be ashamed of that fact anymore.
When I was growing up, what I knew from my experience in church as a child was that women were only allowed to do a few things. They took care of the children, they made coffee, or brought something for the potluck. And while I do like to cook and I love children, it just wasn't anything that I felt fulfilled me at a soul level. And so as I started exploring more of what would and what I like to do and I'm gifted to do, I realized that, I nurture people. I like to connect people. And I felt in ever-increasing ways a clarity that is what I'm supposed to do in ministry, and maybe even from more of a leadership perspective, which, just thinking that alone is really intimidating and scary because it's never allowed. It was never anything I was ever told that women in general were allowed to do. It's nothing I ever have been trained to do. And I often worry that I'm not good enough to do it or know enough or will I measure up, which is interesting because in no other area of my life do I feel that way. I'm a mom with 5 kids who works full time, and I do it all, and I'm successful in business, and I was successful in school. I was never told, in fact, I was quite the opposite. I was always encouraged that I could always excel or succeed in academia or business, regardless of whether I was a man or a woman. And I did. I believed that 100% and have since been successful in those arenas. But there was just this huge disconnect. I never applied that philosophy to my spiritual walk or the way I would give back to my community or my church. Even though those things are still confusing and I'm still working out that it's very clear that God wants me. He wants my femininity to talk to people, to connect to people.